Hello, welcome to the next part of Sewing an 18th Century Cap. I'm Christina, and the first thing I want to talk about is thread, as you can see here. I've got all kinds of different thread that I've used in the past, and I'm going to start over here with some fantastic linen threads. If you want to be super authentic, linen thread is the way to go. So I got this one from Larkin and Smith. I don't think they're selling this anymore, but it's truly fantastic. 100/2, beautiful pure white color, blends in really nicely. This one, Burnley and Trowbridge, 35/2. Let's see if I can get a little, yeah, it's kind of in there. This is really great as well. Get a look at that. And if you do use linen thread, you definitely want to wax it. I've tried using it without waxing it and it breaks. So definitely wax it. Get yourself a cake of beeswax. Run your thread through it. Run your thread through it. And if you want, I've even heard what you're supposed to do is put it between like sheets of parchment paper and run an iron over it. You can do that. I do not do that though, but I think that's what you're supposed to do. So I just usually use this, and I trust that the heat of my fingers will heat it up a little bit. So that's for linen thread. The next choice, a good choice is cotton thread. Now to my knowledge, they did not have cotton thread yet. That's what I've heard. That didn't happen until the early 1800s, but you don't need to wax it. It's great. You can get it anywhere in a great white color. This is just a regular from Joann's cotton Gutermann. This one, I actually got this from my stepmother. She worked in a specialty store, and I really like it. It's very silky and smooth. I just bring it up because if you have access to really nice threads, then see fine embroidery thread. Very white. I love working with this. It's very silky smooth, whereas this is a touch rough. The next option would be silk. If you are sewing on some silk organza, definitely you want to sew it with silk. And this is the standard Gutermann you're going to find at Joann's, and I think it's a little thick. It really shows on my dormouse cap. I can see it. Maybe you don't mind, but for me, I actually think it's a little bit thick. This is probably my favorite sewing silk. Let's see if I can get you the specs on that. It's kimono thread. Look at that, number 100. So this is what it looks like, and I actually bought a package on Amazon of a variety of neutral colors. This and black and beige and gray, things like that. But this is wonderful. It's so thin. You don't need to do anything else to it. Just thread your needle, and it's fantastic. And it's so thin that the stitches will just kind of disappear. Okay, and then I wanted to say a quick word about the kind of needles I use. So usually you just use, whatever kind of small needle is in your pin cushion. But I found everything was kind of big, and it was hurting my hand when I sewed a lot. But these are tiny little things. I found these at Hobby Lobby. I've only ever seen them at Hobby Lobby. If you find them somewhere else, or if you know how to order them online, let me know, because I love them. I think they actually even changed the packaging. But here they're called short beading needles. And I don't know, maybe it looks like there were 6 in there. But let's see if you can see it up close. They're so tiny compared to a normal needle. Let me see. Let me pull like a normal one. I mean, they're just, if you can see that, I don't know. But yeah, they're much skinnier. If you're sewing something very fine, it's actually a lot easier on your hand. So I would recommend, if your wrist is hurting at all, it might be because your needle is, I don't know, maybe it's large. I don't know the mechanics of that. I just know that I love these, and so I'm telling you about them now. Okay, I'm going to assume you've got all your pieces cut out. You've got the edges fray checked if you wanted to do that. And we're ready to sew. I'm going to take none of my own advice, and I'm going to use red thread to sew so you can see it. Again, this is not becoming a cap. I actually have enough caps right now, but I just want to show you the stitches. So the first thing I like to do is you need to make a little eyelet at the bottom here for the with a little cotton or linen thread for the back of the drawstring to go through. So I've already ironed this up. I think it's beneficial to do that first so that you can see where you want your little hole to go. Okay. So I'm going to find the middle. Okay, right there. I'm going to mark it. And you'll notice I use different colored pins for different things. I like to mark the back of the middle of things with black, and I'll talk more about that in my trimming section. So there we go. And let's see. All right, here's the middle of the back. And I'm just going to poke this with an awl. Just poking right. I actually only want to go through one layer, just that middle one. Okay. So that when it's folded, there we go, the string can come out of there. Okay, so now I might want to start on the inside. I have put a knot at the very end. I know a lot of people say don't do a knot, just sew, but gosh, after you've had your thread, just keep pulling through and it's just not, it's not sticking. I do a knot and I sew through it a couple times. And then, so that gives me, I like that. And now I'm just going to sew around these edges. There's not any amazing technique to this other than, I guess, what I usually do is I'll go around once. Let's see. We'll go around once. I'm being a little quick since I know I'm taking up time with you watching me, but that, and then I will try to open it up a little more. This fabric is being extremely accommodating. The hole's just staying open. They're not all like that. Sometimes you need to go through it a few times. But yours will be more beautiful than mine because I am standing hunched over trying to make sure you can see this. So it doesn't look fantastic. But yours will look better. So, yep. I think you get the picture there. We're doing that. And you're going to go all the way around. I'm going to cheat and stop here. And I'm just going to tie off. Oh, this is embarrassing. Anyway, we're going to assume I did a good knot. There we are. Okay, now. All right, we have done our eyelet here. It looks pretty good. And so now then when we fold this up, it will be just like that on the inside. All right, the next thing we're going to do is Of course, I've already ironed this. And if you haven't done that, make sure you've got that iron nice and good so you can see where you're going to sew. This is going to be the casing where your little cotton or linen tape is going to go through. I've already started myself off right here, and you can just do a running stitch. I'm just going to catch a little bit on the back side like this. This is very simple. My guess is you probably don't need my help with this too much. I like to, when I'm doing the running stitch, when I stop, I'll go slightly back on the last one just to kind of, I don't know, keep things nice and tight, like that. All right, so you can go ahead and continue doing that for the rest of the line. And I'm just going to stop right here since this is just a sample. But once you're done with that, you'll have your casing complete, and you will get your little cotton or linen tape, and I would put it on the end of here, and we're just gonna pretend that I'm doing this. So here is one I've already done. It's got the tape all tied in a nice little bow. There, so I'm gonna undo it. I'm gonna show you. Okay. How you're gonna want to do it. All right, there we are. See that? So this edge has been sewn, and then you can just put your little end on a safety pin, and you can go ahead and thread it through and then out your hole. And you'll want two separate pieces. And I like to do mine so that I can open it out and they won't come out. See, I've got at least an inch right here, so that it's not going to fall out even if I open it all the way out to iron it really good. Another thing you're then going to want to do is tack right in there really good. Just sew a couple times over it to make sure that it's not going to come out. We are going to be doing a rolled edge there, but just make sure that that doesn't pull out, because you are going to be putting a little bit of strain on here. So just like that. I finished off the ends of my tapes. Let's see if you can see. I do go through and sew those. You can also put some fray check on there, because otherwise you get little dangly bits hanging out, and we don't want that. But yep, so do that, lace it through your eyelet, and then you'll be able to do this later when you're all done. The next piece I want to focus on is the band of the cap. And a lot of ready-made caps, you'll notice they'll have this piece doubled, and then they will have the back of it and the front ruffly part kind of sandwiched in here. And that is a very fast way to make it. It's very clean. It looks good. You can do it that way if you want on the machine. But I'm going to show you how it would have been done in the era, and that is that all of these edges would be finished off, and then everything is going to be whipped together. So here's my piece. I chose to cut it without a seam allowance. I don't know that it matters. This is for a demo, so it was easier on me. You'll see here that I have said rolled or narrow hem. Now, if you are very good, and if you have very nice, crisp fabric, you could, on this straight edge here, you could fold this up. Oh, one of the wonderful things about linen is you can finger press it really nice. Like that, and then you can roll it up again, and you could go ahead and you could just do that running stitch that I showed you, the most basic sewing stitch, just in and out, and kind of sew that down like that if you want to. That, however, will not work very well on these curved edges. And so what we're going to do though on those is a rolled hem, and I want to show you how I do it, maybe a couple tricks for making that look really good. Okay, we've got our cap piece here, and the stitch we're going to be doing is called a rolled hem. And the way you start that out is we're going to fold this edge over, but only once. Only once at this first step. Now I've got my threaded needle here, and I'm going to just get this started by anchoring this off really well. Pull it through the needle, the thread stops. And do it a couple times because I want to make sure that that's anchored in really well. Okay. You don't want your thread so short that it comes out, but you also don't want it too long. Actually, if you have a piece of thread that's too long, the thread gets weakened as you pull it, as you're sewing. So that's one of the reasons why you want a good length of thread. Okay, now the way I start these, I usually just cheat a little bit by folding a very narrow, tiniest hem I can. So I basically folded that fold in half. Now I just do that for the first one. Okay. All right, here we go. This is how we start. So the first part of the stitch is that we're going to pick up a tiny, just a couple threads from directly under where the fold is. Let's see, directly under where the fold is, and you also want to be directly under where your last stitch was. So just like that. And now in one fell swoop, you're going to, with your needle, you're going to pick up just this little fold right here and pull your thread through. Likes to get caught at the beginning. Here we go. We're not going to tighten that yet. I'm just going to leave that there, and we're going to keep doing it a few more times. So again, right below, see the fold there, and also right below the stitch. So there's a very precise point where you're picking up just a couple of threads, and I'm going to go up maybe about 1/4 of an inch. When you are sewing a straight edge, they don't need to be as close together. When you're sewing a curved edge, you'll want them much closer together. Okay, and again, directly underneath here. And then up at a diagonal. Just catching those top few threads. There we go. Let me do one more and then I'll show you the magic. Again, directly below and also directly underneath where that fold, where that raw edge is. And up. Okay. Now we've got this neat little design, but that's not doing us much good. And what we're going to do is we're going to hold very firmly here. You're going to pull on your thread and watch how those just lay right down flat. See that? You look on the other side, it's just little tiny dots where you did that. Now I'll usually take like maybe 5 stitches and then pull it. Kind of depends on your thread and your fabric and different things like that. And then what I'll do is, because you're pulling so hard, I've had my thread snap, so I don't want to have to undo my whole line. So I'll usually go through and do a little bit of a knot. I did this one kind of early. I usually only do it maybe every 2 inches. I will do a little bit of a knot because you are pulling very hard on this. So I'll do it a few more times just to make sure you can see, and also how to pick up after you've sewn that down. Just try to get under there, directly under there. Just like that. And this is also the key to the impossibly tiny hems, because as you can see, what's happening is not only have I folded down the smallest hem possible, it's actually folding itself in half. When I pull on the thread, it is folding itself in half and making the hem even tinier than the first one that I did. So, yep, I'm just going to keep going until I've got a few on there, and then just like that, and it flattens out. Great. Alright, so it's all well and good if you can do a rolled hem on a straight edge. That's the easiest thing. But where it's actually really helpful and necessary, and also a lot harder, is on this edge right here. And so I'm going to have you watch me do it just so you can see how it's done, and also that I'm not perfect at it. But just go for it, and it will look cleaner than it would if you just tried to fold it over. And I've had to do a couple takes on this because my thread kept slipping out, and even though this is cotton thread, I waxed it, and that helped keep it there, which is a neat trick. I might use it more in the future. Okay, so I've got my first little one here. Remember, I'm going to fold it in half, do a little cheat. So right through there. Get started. And also want to feel like I've got a nice strong anchor point. Seems good. Okay. The fray check is really coming in handy here. It is, I'm pressing it down and it's staying. And remember, you only have to fold it down once, and the rolling part will take care of the other half. Okay. I don't think that took. Do it again. Okay. I feel good about that. Great. Right. Picking up a thread right underneath. Now on a curve, you're going to go a lot, you want your stitches a lot closer together than on the straight. Because that's more points where the stitch can pull together, and it can get everything together. It's funky. Okay. This part is unlikely to show very much. Also, it is usually hidden behind your ribbon. There's usually ruffles there. I would not fret too much about it. But nonetheless, you do want it hemmed. So here we are. Let's see, I'm going to try to go a little closer than I would. I just kind of want you to see that it is possible. And that I've made lots of caps. I'm still not perfect, but just give it a try. And look, here we go. I've kind of gotten the hardest part of the curve, so let's pull on it and see what happens. Not too shabby. Okay, see there? It's hemmed. For the next step, we are going to attach this headband piece to the caul piece, and you can see on the pattern there's this dot here, and that is indicating where we're going to start attaching them. So it ended up being about right here. I went ahead and just sewed this on the machine real quick, but you would like to do a rolled hem or a very narrow hem for that. And I'm going to do a whip stitch, which is super easy. You can do this. Now I actually have my thread doubled, and there's a reason for that will become evident on the next step. But probably historically it would not be doubled. It would just be a single thread, but it makes it a little bit easier in the next step. So it's a little trick you can use, and you'll see why in a minute. All right, so what I've done is I've got my right sides together, and I'm just sewing along these two edges here, whipping them together. So, hopefully this is clear what's going on. Simple here. Okay, and you want to stay as close as you can to these tops. Okay, see that? Right here. Pretty close. If you can just pick up a couple threads, that would be great. And just keep going until you are to your point. I'm making my stitches a little bit large so that you don't have to watch me go the whole way with tiny stitches. I would probably do stitches about half this size if I was sewing this by hand and actually making a cap. I am using cotton thread, but it's getting a little bit of knots in it today. Okay, so just about there to my point, and I'm going to make a nice knot. I'm going to tie this off just like this. Okay, and now we're ready for the next step. That's about what it will look like, again with smaller stitches, and this is the outside, and you'll just barely see those, just like that. The next stitch we're going to learn is the whipped gathers, and this is actually my favorite stitch. So to prepare our pieces for that, as you can see, I've already got this head piece here. I've got my center marked. Also, to note, I'm attaching the straight edge. I've also got the center marked on my circular piece here. And what I want to do is I want to start out by marking the quarters of these, because that's going to come in handy. And from this point, here we are. Okay, from this point that we ended to the center, I'm going to find a quarter right here. I'll just crease that a little bit, and then I'm going to go like this because I want to be able to leave this pin for a little bit. Now I'm going to find the half of this. Okay. Great. So essentially what we're going to be doing is we're going to be gathering this piece to this piece. And so where we've got our quarters and our halves marked, those are going to attach together. Okay, so what I'm going to do, you saw from the previous one, I had this double strand right here, and that is making it easier so that my needle doesn't fall off, because I'm going to take this and just set it to the side, and I'm going to get another needle, pretty much the same needle, and I've got double thread on this one also. So to start the whipped gather stitch, we're going to anchor this nicely here, just like we did for the other stitches. We want a really nice anchor. And I'm just gonna go between there. Okay, got that anchored pretty good. Okay, so the way we do this stitch is we're going to be gathering this, but we're also going to be hemming it at the same time. So we're going to kind of fold down, just a narrow fold, very much the same way that we started the rolled hem. Okay, and now the difference is we're going to take our needle and we're going to go straight back right through that first stitch was. And here's the trick, we're going to go around and stick it back in. Now, what I love about this stitch is that you don't have to just pull it through. You can just pull it straight through like that. But it's a lot more fun if you, here we are, let's start again. If you go around and then you keep going around. And each time you go around, your needle is going to hit right at the bottom of that fold. And I like to move my nail to where I want the next stitch to be as soon as I've stuck my needle in there. See, I know where that's going to be, and so I'm going to move my finger over about 1/4 of an inch, because when you're doing this, it's kind of hard to tell, but if you've got your nail in place, you can see it. All right, I've loaded up a good number of little bumps on there, so I'm going to go ahead and pull this through. Make sure nothing snags there. All right, look at that. Now that helped hem it, because by going from the back to the front, it helped that edge fold over even more, to fold over that second time that you needed it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish this 1/4 of the hat, and you will get better at this with time. This is basically what you do. It's pretty quick right out the gate. Just each time you pull it through, just kind of keep an eye on this. Make sure everything lays nice. There you go. Come on. A bump there. All right, and I've just got a little more to do. There. Oh, while I'm doing this, I wanted to make a comment. I don't use a thimble to sew. That's kind of bad. If you're learning to sew from the start, learn with a thimble. That's really good. I've tried. I cannot get one to stay on my finger. If I'm doing some kind of really thick, like tailoring something, I do have an open one that I'll use. And it works okay, but it's a little awkward. So if you can learn to sew with a thimble, please do. I don't know if it's too late for me or not, but I've tried a few times. Okay, there we go. All right, so we've run our gathering thread, and now we are going to pull it up. Just like so. And similar to before, these two pieces where we've got the pins in place, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a real pin there. Let me see if I've got a white one. Here we are. Put a real pin in there. Take these out. This is where the double thread comes in easy, because now I am going to set this one aside. The reason I'm doing this, and I'm only doing 1/4 at a time, you could do even less at a time if you want, is because I've had my thread break a lot. The first time I went to do this, my thread broke so many times. It was so frustrating. I was going to give up. And then I realized, you know what? Why don't you just tie off more often? It was a little tricky with a single thread. So I said, you know what? I'm going to use a double thread. I'm going to Just kind of let it dangle there. I'm gonna put another one in here just to, yeah, pretty good. Now I can pick this one up. And I'm gonna go through here and I'm gonna catch each little bump. Just right on the top of the bump. So we're doing a whip stitch again with the same needle, only this time we're just catching the bump instead of the top of the other edge. Well, I mean, it's still the top of the other edge. So do this, and you'll keep doing that. I think you get the picture. This is pretty simple. So I'm going to tie off. Tie off as often as you want. It makes you feel comfortable. Actually, the one that's more important to tie off is whoops, this one over here. So let's assume that I sewed all those. And we're done. Then what I always do is I make sure that I tie this off really good. Because you're going to be pulling on it pretty hard, tugging on it pretty good for the next set of gathers. Alright, and so we've still got these, and because of the double thread, like I said, historically it probably should be single, but this double, oh, so nice. It just kind of hangs out there, it doesn't fall off. So here's where I actually sewed it on. Look at that. Looks pretty neat. I love that look. You actually use this stitch a lot of other places in the 18th century. So it is a good one to know, and it actually is pretty darn quick. All right, on to the next step.